Happy Truth Tuesday, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by. So yesterday, I was doing my devotional, doing some of my quiet time, and I came across this verse that really challenged me. And this verse spoke about contentment. The Bible actually speaks about it a lot. So if you know me, you know that I'm a dreamer. I'm an ambitious person. I always have a list of goals, a list of to-dos, something I'm chasing. But here's the thing, I also take my relationship with the Lord very seriously. So when I read something and it speaks to me and it challenges me, I really like to dive into it and kind of dissect it and see how I can apply it to my life. So as I sat here kind of pondering on this idea of contentment, it led me down a rabbit hole of some questions. I'm sure many of you probably asked the same ones. So as Christians, we're called to be content. We see that in His Word. But how does one strike a balance, especially one that is ambitious? How do we strike a balance between contentment and ambition? It's really a predicament, isn't it? Because I truly believe that the ambition, the fire, the drive that I have is something that the Lord gifted me with. And I believe that it'll be a tool that I can use to pursue my God-given dreams, my purpose, my callings. But yet I am not blind to the fact that sometimes I let this ambition become some type of idol in my life, and sometimes can cloud the bigger picture in my life. So where does that leave us? How do we navigate this tension? Well, my friends, that is what we are here to dive into today and learn about together. What's going on, everybody? Caleb Truth here, and I want to personally welcome you to the That's Truth Podcast, where we talk everything about growth in life, health, and faith. I am so glad that you are here today. If you enjoy the show today, I would really appreciate it if you would go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. That is the number one way to help us have a greater impact. And if you would like access to behind the scenes and some recap content of the shows, go ahead and follow us on all socials at ThatsTruthPod. I cannot wait to get into today's topic. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. I've been wrestling with this idea for quite a while now, and I believe that God has shown me, 3 ways that kind of helps me balance it out a little more. And I want to preface this whole episode by saying I am far from perfect. I still struggle with this idea on a daily basis. I kid you not, a daily basis. But these are just some things that I feel like God has been showing me, it's been teaching me over the course of the last couple years that I think would help provide some value to some of you that may be struggling with this same idea between, the balance between contentment and ambition. So I got some truths for you today that I cannot wait to share with you. So I want you to picture this, okay? You're standing at a crossroads. You see 2 roads. One is a wide road. It is one for you speedsters out there where you could probably crank this cruise on this bad boy about 7 or 8 over if you feel like it. You're going to be flying on a straight path and get to your destination as quickly as possible. And then the other road is a much narrower road, okay? This road is one that you're going to have to take your time on a little bit because you cannot go as fast as you could on this wide road that you see on the other side. This wide road that you see over here is that road of quick success, quick fame, that ambition that you have, so it sometimes gets out of control. And that much narrower road is that path of contentment. Let's just be real honest with ourselves here, and I'm going to be real honest with you. That road that is wide that I could go a little fast on, even though I'm a rule follower here, seems a lot more appealing to me than that much narrower road that I would have to take my time on. It's the same thing with ambition and contentment. Ambition, we can go fast, but with contentment, it's a much slower pace. And trust me, you are not alone if you're ready to dismiss that path of contentment, because I deal with that again on a daily basis. But my goal for this episode is to show you how you can kind of find that balance that I'm talking about between ambition and contentment, because I think that both are kind of necessary to live the life that God's called us to live. I do believe, again, that ambition that He's given some of us is a gift that He wants to use in us to reach the goals and the purpose and the calling that He has for us. But at the same time, if we're not careful and we don't have some contentment in our life, that ambition will begin to cloud the greater purpose in our life. So key idea number 1 to finding that balance between ambition and contentment: I shifted my perspective. I wanted to offer a piece of encouragement for the ambitious people here, because when I first kind of saw this verse that I was challenged with, I felt kind of shame for it, to be honest. My first reaction was, wow, Caleb, your ambition is so wrong. You need to get that under control. And yes, I do need to get that under control. But ambition isn't inherently evil. In fact, when we channel it correctly, I do believe that it can be a key ingredient in living the life that God has called us to live. But in order to maximize the gift of ambition, Not the worship of ambition, not the idol of ambition, right? But the gift of ambition that God has given us. It's important that we shift our perspective on what it is and what it isn't. Let's first talk about what contentment is not. Contentment is not about settling for less and becoming complacent. This was a common misconception I had when I was diving into all of this. I thought that in order to be content, that meant my drive, my goal was kind of had to take a seat in the back seat. This is kind of why I always ran away from the idea of contentment, because I like being driven. I like pursuing goals. It allows me to feel excited about things that I'm pursuing. So selfishly, I didn't want to give up ambition. Truthfully, I couldn't see a life where I wasn't going towards something, where I wasn't working towards something. To be content, does that mean I have to quit pursuing my goals? To be content, am I not allowed to have personal aspirations? To be content, am I not allowed to strive for financial freedom, to set myself and my family up for a great future? But I realize this is not what contentment is at all, and I do believe that this is kind of a lie that the enemy tried to put into my head of what contentment was, because he knew if that's what I thought contentment was, I wouldn't pursue it. So no, contentment doesn't mean that you have to quit having goals or aspirations. Contentment is not about losing your work ethic or your drive. Contentment is about finding joy, finding peace in the journey regardless of the destination. It's about embracing the now while still holding on to your dreams with open hands. It's trusting God even when you have few. There's a verse in the Bible that my dad actually referenced yesterday, but I had it in my notes for today as well. And it's, delight yourself in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. This is Psalm 37:4. And, when I first was applying this scripture to this whole idea, I was following the second part of that God would give me the desires of my heart. But in reality, that's what contentment is trusting that God will give you the desires that is his will for your life, right? And I believe that that's kind of what the scripture is talking about, and that's what God will do for us when we say, Lord, I want what you want for my life. I am content with your will over my own. Yes, I have ambitions. Yes, I have desires. But if it doesn't align with your will, Lord, I pray that you will remove those desires from my heart and you will replace those with those that align with your will. That is what contentment is. And that's something I've really been trying to incorporate a lot in my prayer, is not to quit praying for the desires of my heart, but praying that if my desires don't align with his will, that they would be removed from my heart. So shifting my perspective on this whole idea about contentment has already been super beneficial for me in my journey towards contentment, and I think it would serve you well as well. Key idea number 2, I began walking with intentionality. For those of us that are ambitious, we love that wide fast lane. We like living in the fast lane. We want to know what is next. We love setting our cruise control, 7 over and just flying down that fast lane. But that is not contentment. Living a life on cruise control, living a life on autopilot is not being content. When we live our life on cruise control, we begin to lose focus on the true task at hand. Our mind starts to wander, and if you're like me, sometimes you even forget that you are driving to begin with. Sometimes we live this life on cruise control and we lose intentionality. If we're in autopilot, if we're in cruise and we lose intentionality, we're no longer even focused on the purpose that God's given us. We're just doing it. We're just going. And what kind of life, according to God's will, what kind of life is one that isn't intentional? What kind of life is one that just goes on autopilot? That's not the life that God intends for us to live. He wants us to live intentionally. Contentment is walking intentionally. And notice how I said walking. Because that is what intentionality often looks like. It looks like a slower pace. It looks like a walk. But us fast laners, though, we don't like to go slow. We like to go fast. I cannot genuinely think of an intentional person that moves fast. Ask yourself, who is the most intentional person I know? And then ask yourself a follow-up question when you think of that person. Do they move at a fast pace or do they move at a slow pace? Chances are they move at a slower pace. They focus on each step in the journey rather than the end destination. Being content is about pushing aside our preference of pace, and it's embracing the pace of our God-given purpose. When we slow our pace down, we're able to notice the things that God is trying to show us. And you may be wondering, because I've wondered it, if these things that God is trying to show us are so small, why do we need to notice them in the first place? because it's often the small things adopted that leads to the biggest change. John Mark Comer, in his book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, says this: intention is the beginning of devotion, which is so powerful because when we begin slowing our pace and paying attention to what God is trying to show us, we are showing complete devotion to His will and His call in our life. Which leads me to my final point on this idea of striking the balance between contentment and ambition. I surrendered. Truly being content means fully surrendering everything you do to the Lord. Here's the thing. We can have dreams, we can have ambitions, we can have goals, but all those things are nothing. Those things are nothing without our Creator. Something I've been trying to do in my prayer life right now is to include God in everything. For those of you that don't know, I own a wedding business where I do photo and video for weddings. When I'm editing the photo gallery or the video gallery, I've been asking God, be in this work. When I'm working out or when I'm running or when I'm walking, I've been trying. I'm not perfect. I obviously forget at times, but I've been trying to ask God to be in that moment. I've been trying to ask God to be in most of the moments that I've been having on a daily basis. And again, I forget multiple times, but it's that intentionality that I've noticed has brought the greatest return in my relationship with the Lord. So true contentment is when in the pursuit of those goals that we have, we pursue them with the mindset of letting God's will be done. It's saying, God, I'm going to pursue this because I believe you have put me here for a reason. I believe that you have put this desire in my heart. And it's saying, God, I'm going to pursue this because I believe that you have put this desire in my heart. But even if it doesn't go the way that I wish it would go or would even want it to go, I'm going to trust that your will in my life is being done and that is the most important thing in my life. Those are the type of prayers I've been trying to have more often, and it's changed my heart. Again, I'm human. I have flesh. I want to go back to that default of ambition and drive and wanting to pursue, if I could speak today. And that is okay. But at least I am trying to live more intentional in my walk with the Lord and saying, God, I really want your will in my life. God, I still have these desires. I still have these ambitions. You know my heart. You know I have those. So I'm going to be real honest with you and tell you those desires. But I want you to know if it doesn't align with your will, God, take it from me. And that is a hard prayer. And when you pray that prayer, you need to be ready for God to answer. Because if you pray that prayer and he starts removing some things in your life that you are passionate about and that you love, that's going to hurt, dude. That's going to hurt. But trust that God is moving your life in the direction that he has perfectly, specifically, and uniquely designed just for you. And when I did that, man, when I started trying to live in that way, the peace that entered my life is unexplainable. Even just talking about it now, this week, there's been some things that I've been pursuing, and I've been pursuing hard. This podcast is one of them, and I feel like I'm going. Even just saying that in the last 2 minutes has just brought me a sense of peace. In this moment, right now, I am far from perfect, and my ambition still clouds my contentment time to time, a lot of times, let's be real. But I'm telling you, pursuing a life of trusting God's purpose, regardless if it lines up with our preference, is so freeing. Before we go, I want to give you some action steps. I threw a lot at you as far as this is what we feel. This is why we feel it. This is what you should feel. But that does nothing if you don't have applicable steps to take with you. So I want to give you 3 things that this week you can do to pursue this life of contentment. Number 1, think about the goal you're pursuing and write down 3 lessons that you have learned through the process. Not the outcome of it, but the process. What are 3 things you've learned from this journey? Number 2, take a walk. Literally take a walk. No earbuds, no music, breathe in fresh air, and reflect on how you can slow some stuff down. Ask yourself, what is something I can do to slow my pace down? Number 3, final point, write down a sentence of surrender and say it every day. Like I referenced in the past, it looks different for everybody, and I don't want you to say what I say. I want you to say what God has put on your heart in this episode, what he has convicted you in this episode. For me, right now, it's been, God, I have desires. God, I have goals. I have ambitions. You know my heart, so you know these desires, Lord. And I ask that if it's your will that these things that I desire would be done, However, God, if this is not your will for my life, if these desires do not line up with the will you have for my life, I ask that you will remove them and replace them with things that do. That has been my surrender statement, and I've been trying to say it on a consistent basis, and it's already changed so many things in this walk for me. So I want to encourage you finally to write down that sentence of surrender and say it every single day. Tape it on your mirror, tape it on your bathroom wall. I don't care where you do it, but make it visible to where you'll see it every day. That's going to do it for today's episode, guys. This was a pretty challenging episode, and the reason I think I talked about it so passionately is because it's something that I've been walking through every single day. It's something that God's been working in me every single day. So I hope that for you ambitious people, you found some value in this episode. I am rooting for you in this journey of contentment. I am right alongside of you in this journey with you. I'm literally walking it right now, and I feel like this episode was really teaching myself some things, to be honest, and just pressing record and sharing it with you guys. So thank you all for listening and giving me this opportunity to share it with you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. I appreciate all the support. It's been unreal lately, so thank you guys so much again. God bless you this week. I'll be rooting for you. I'll be praying for you. See ya. Hey everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to listen to our show. Doing this show is truly life-giving to me, so I appreciate you stopping by. And if you enjoyed today, don't forget to subscribe to the show. That is the best way to help us have a greater impact. And go ahead and follow us on socials at ThatsTruthPod for more content. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you next Tuesday.